So thank you, Senora Herrera, for this invitation. I want to thank, first of all, IFLTA, Indiana Language Roadmap, and University of Indiana for for this amazing webinar series. I've learned so much by attending these, but also it is a great honor to be included with these educators, these fantastic educators as well. So thank you for inviting me to be here today. Again, my name is JJ Melgar. It is Jennifer, but I go by JJ. I teach at Westwood High School, which is actually in Round Rock ISD, which is a kind of a suburb city of Austin, but most people don't know Round Rock, but they do know Austin. Like you said, I'm a German teacher for high school, so I teach German 1 all the way up through AP and IB. I am the only German teacher on my campus, and so that means I have all of the students. Just completed my 20th year of teaching, and my first 6 years were at the middle school level. So when it comes to movement, I know that movement is important, especially for those middle schoolers, but also for our high schoolers. My school, we are on a block schedule. So that means that I teach my students every other day for approximately an hour and a half, about 83 minutes or so. So, and it's not fair for our students to be sitting for 8 hours a day, really. As I've learned through distance learning, it is pretty difficult to sit that long. So let's go ahead and get started a little bit. Here, just navigating the presentation. So towards the end, we will put in the chat box, we'll put the bit.ly that allows you access to the presentation, as well as the Google Drive that has a lot of templates and such for you. So when you get that and you're able to see this, please note that if you're not in presentation mode, you'll be able to see kind of these notes that I'll have down here at the bottom. It'll have links to the examples and templates, but also I'm still learning, so bear with me as I start adapting this with synchronous and asynchronous ideas for these particular activities. Also, if you have any ideas, please feel free to email me and I can add it on there. I also have some of the titles, if they have a template attached to it, it'll be linked to the English version there. I've got a couple of versions for Spanish and French as well, thanks to a couple of colleagues of mine. So with that, here is kind of the premise of it all, is that these energizers wake up our learners, increase their energy levels, improve their information storage and retrieval, and help them feel good. What I love about this is it is absolutely true. The more we can get our students moving, the more that they can retrieve and really comprehend and really internalize. What I also wanted to point out about this quote is that it was written in November of 2000. So that was 20 years ago. So this is not a new concept. Most of these things that I'm going to share with you today, some of them are oldies but goodies, things that you may have used but then forgot about, because some of them are for me. So let's go ahead and get started with some of our first activities. This is the running matching game. This is an interpretive. And again, I teach all levels, so I'm going to give you some variations on how you can do this for upper and lower levels. But you can do this with any level of student. The students here, all you have is a text. You'll notice with some of my pictures that the students are in groups on the floor, and they actually have a copy of the text, but they don't have the headings to the different paragraphs. And so what I've asked for them to do is to go and match the heading to the paragraph, basically working on main idea. This is something that is actually done on the IB test, that they have a text, they have to match the headings to the text. So I've asked them to sit here and read and work together as a group to make sure that they understand the text. But then one person, it kind of becomes a relay race. One person goes to the table and they have the readings, and then now they have copies of the headings, and they're going to actually try and match one. They only do one match, and then they go back to the group. And person number 2 gets up and goes and matches. They first have to check the card from person 1 and then make a new match. And then person 3 goes up, checks 1 and 2, and then makes a new match, and so on. Here, I can show you a quick one. I'm going to keep the volume down on this one so that I can talk over it. But really, all that the students are doing, they're doing an individual piece, but at the same time, their group is doing a little bit of group work just to make sure that they comprehend everything. So that's it. That's the running matching game. You can also do it with multiple choice. I've done it even with vocabulary, with definitions for vocabulary. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this, and really it's just getting them to do it a little bit differently. So our next activity, 4 corners. This is a super oldie, but a goodie. I used to do this back in middle school, very low tech, had the A, B, C, D around the room. And then I forgot about it after a while and stopped using it. And about 5 years ago, I had a student teacher who did this. And I was like, oh my God, of course. So Ben brought it back to me, and something that I love to do. And there's so many different variations that you can how you can use this. Basically, I'm giving a question to the students in the middle, and then they have 4 corners. And in the 4 corners, they go physically to that corner of the room for whatever the answer is for them in particular. They can, a couple of variations. I can show language functions on this. I can work with short stories or with novels, like who would say what, who would do what, and so forth. I can also do multiple choice kind of questions with this. So let me show you a couple of variations. This one is with my level 1s, just working with vocabulary. You'll notice that I've highlighted the question word. This is what they're actually responding to, what the response is going to be. So they have that. They have, obviously I have a picture with each one, and they go to which one that they like the best. That's pretty much it. While they're in that corner, this is interpretive. It's working with some vocabulary, but at the same time, I can make it a little interpersonal and say, hey, turn and talk to a partner. One person asks the question, the other person reads the response, and it's just that beginning level of working with the language. We can also do it with reflexives. This is a reflexive, so grammar in context. I have highlighted the reflexive pronoun, and then in the response, they all have the reflexive pronoun also highlighted. So that's another way that they can also work with vocabulary. So I always have the pictures with it, but also working with some language functions in context. And then for my upper levels, for APIB, I may have a text that is an actual AP text with the AP questions. And they'll have the question in the middle, and then they actually have the paper with them, so they know what the answers are. And I just ask them to go to that corner. We'll do a turn and talk. Well, I'll ask them to discuss in the target language with their partners. Why do you think it's this answer? And so forth, okay? Justify your answer. So that is 4 corners. Again, an oldie but a goodie. Spectrum lineup, this is, again, can be interpretive, but also we can make it a little interpersonal. Students, I have 1, 5, and 10 listed on my on the wall in my classroom. And it's basically, I can ask them anything, and they line themselves up according to where they fall on that spectrum. So for this example, I have, do you like to shop? If you absolutely love to shop, you would go to the 10. If that's like your absolute favorite thing to do. But if you absolutely hate shopping, I would go over to the 1. But if you're kind of in the middle, maybe you'd like to shop, but it's not your absolute favorite, maybe a 7, but just kind of line yourself up. And then if they are, depending on the level, if they're at the point where they can discuss it, turn and talk. Or I can ask them, well, where did you put yourself? If you're kind of in the middle, are you at a 4 or a 5? Where do you find yourself? And a couple of examples. We have just when this was obviously with my clothing unit. Do you like, whoops, a modern outfit or a vintage outfit? Or maybe something a little in between. And turn and talk, discuss what type of outfit it is that is your favorite. And we had something that was more colorful or something drab. Or do you want something a little bit in between with maybe a little bit of color? So again, just lining themselves up on the spectrum. You can also work with this as far as with a text. Let's say my AP students, I'm giving them something super challenging and I give them a text. Maybe it's even a listening activity. Maybe we're doing a listening from with Swiss German. And so that's a little bit more difficult for them to understand. And I can ask them, line yourself up. Where do you think you are on your comprehension of that text? Did you not understand anything out of the 1? Or did you understand everything out of 10? Or are you somewhere in between? So you can also see how students are doing with activities, how they're comprehending, and so forth, just by doing a lineup with the spectrum. Okay. Most important word, this is another great interpretive activity. My students, I actually got this from observing an English teacher. There's a couple of activities I got from observing English teachers. And basically with any kind of reading that we're doing, I ask them to create a mini poster. I ask them to do a word in the middle of the paper. They write out the definition, which they can get that definition straight from the dictionary. I don't mind as long as it's in the target language. Then they have to write a sentence using the word and a short explanation as to why it is the most important word for that text. If it's a short story or an article, this is really where they're kind of summarizing it by doing this short explanation. And then I also have them draw a picture to go with it, expressing why it's the most important word. After that, then this is where the movement comes in, is they might do a gallery walk or they can do a presentational speaking. Another variation of how I've used it is that students at the beginning of the school year, I'll ask them to pick one word that is about their goal or their New Year's resolution at the semester. And they have to do basically the same thing, but they're basing it on one word. And again, we'll do a gallery walk. If you're doing a novel for your upper levels, you may have the students do one chapter. Each student is responsible for a chapter, and then that's a way to review their that book is through a gallery walk with those most important word mini posters. Okay, and then justify. Again, another one that is interpretive, but also a little bit interpersonal. This one, again, I haven't actually done this. This one was, I observed this past semester before we went into distance learning from one of the English teachers on our campus. So if you ever get to go observe other teachers, please do. You can learn so much from them. So this is kind of the same, well, a similar concept to the 4 corners with the AP version. So they have a text, they have the multiple choice questions, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post those questions in various parts of the room with the answer. But some of those answers, notice, will be incorrect. Not all of them are gonna be accurate. And what I ask them to do is walk around in a small group or with a partner, and they have to decide, is that answer the correct answer or not? If they agree that it's the correct answer, then they would write their names and just say on the butcher paper and say, yes, we agree. If they disagree, then they have to justify their answer. So they have to either pull information from the text, and write it out with their names on that butcher paper. And then we can come back together as a whole group. And again, you can do this with the low levels with a shorter text, with just a few multiple choice questions. You can do it with your upper levels using specifically AP activities, AP readings, or even with a listening. But again, the most important piece is for them to justify their answer, pulling information from that text. Justifying their answers is important for, as an IB teacher, that is something that they do have to do on their external assessment, is they have to justify their answer even if it's a true answer. So something that we like to work with. And again, got this from an English teacher. Love those English teachers. So now that brings us, moves us a little bit into the interpersonal speaking or interpersonal activities. I am going to note that some of these slides now are going to get a little busy because I don't, these have links to them, but I don't want to move to those links because I don't want the closed captioning to go away. So that's why you'll see kind of pictures of these. So basically what this is, in the lower levels, we call it our Ask Me. The students are going to partner up with somebody. One is facing the projected questions. The other has their back to the projected questions. Partner one is going to ask the question. They're going to just read it. They're the ones who can see it. They're going to read it. And then their partner has about 20 seconds to respond. Say as much as they can in that 20 seconds. And then the slide's going to switch to this switch, and they switch roles. One person, now the person who couldn't see before, they're the ones actually reading the question, and the other person is responding. 20 seconds. I always do this in PowerPoint because PowerPoint, you can time the slides and you can time them differently. I know you can time slides with Google Slides, but from my understanding, you can only do the same timing throughout. And I have these switch slides at only like 10 seconds and these slides at like 25 seconds, I believe. So 5 seconds to read it, and then partner two is responding. This, from early on, if you're an AP teacher, from early on, you're training them to work quickly with that 20 seconds for that speaking portion. Now, when it gets to the upper levels, we end up calling it lightning questions. And basically, I have it in the format of the simulated conversation. So the students, it's only one person, they remove the switch slide, and one person is doing the reading. So they're basically like the computer from the simulated conversation, and the other person is doing the 20 seconds response. But the main point is for them really to listen to the question rather than just being able to see it. With even a couple of variations, even with the lower levels, let's say they have a short answer, I really want them to fill up the time, but if they have a short answer, I might go ahead and say, now make it a little bit more interpersonal and have a follow-up question, okay? Did the other person actually listen to them and give a follow-up, okay? And let's actually, before we start this one, let's go ahead and take a couple of questions because this one takes a little bit longer. So tell me.
Okay, one teacher just wondering how many students, how many people are assigned to one corner? Is it for the 4-corner activity?
They go to the corner that fits them. So sometimes I might have all 30 students in one corner and nobody in any other corners. I may have 15 students in one corner and 5 and 5, you know, however. So they go to the corner that fits them personally. So it becomes a little bit more personalized.
Thank you. There's one question the teacher is wondering, what is gallery walk?
A gallery walk is, so you post everything up in the room, put the kind of like an art gallery. So you just post the pictures or the butcher paper or the mini posters around the room, and the students walk around in partners or in small groups or individually, and they can walk around the room to look at the posters in their own time.
And one more question. One lining up according to level of comprehension. Are the slower processors embarrassed?
In which activity again?
Lining up.
Oh, in the lineup. Some of them, and I ask for volunteers, so as not to embarrass anybody, but they can volunteer. When they do the turn and talk, they have the opportunity to talk to somebody individually and maybe learn from a stronger student before actually saying it out loud to another, to the whole group. So they don't necessarily have to say it to the whole group.
Okay, and one more question. For running a match, what are the students physically matching?
So I have, it's basically like little manipulatives. So I cut out copies of the paragraph or the short text and the title or the heading for that. And then they physically actually have to match those. So, so have lots of manipulatives so that they are physically moving them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have more time? There are two more questions.
Okay.
Okay. So one teacher just wondering what students usually do in the four corner activities. And another question, lightning ask me only 2 students at a time. The rest students have nothing to do.
So in the ask me, so let me go back to the first one. In the 4 corners, it's usually very quick. So I go from slide to slide so that they are getting vocabulary at the very beginning of it. And I may just ask a couple of students for a response out loud, or they do a turn and talk. Again, it's very quick. It's not something that I'm going to have them in that corner for very long before I switch slides and have them move to another corner with the next question. And then what was the second question on that one?
Oh, for lightning ask me part, and some teachers wondering only 2 students at a time. How about the rest students? They have nothing to do, or they have the other assignment? They're
doing the same thing. So they everybody's with a partner, and so you have several groups. So all I'm doing is walking around listening to the different partners, the different groups. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And another teacher just asked you one more challenge question. How do you encourage unmotivated students? And how do you manage the noise level with that amount of students moving at the same time?
I don't manage the noise level. I let them, they're still teenagers. And so it's okay to let them go be a little bit loud. Sometimes the Spanish teacher and I have a competition who closes the door first because who's going to be louder. That's really, the noise level, to me is okay. Because if as long as they're in the target language, I'm okay with the noise level. And really as I'm monitoring and walking around, the students that tend to be a little bit more unmotivated, I'm going around and and focusing myself on those students to see what I can do to help, to give them that motivation and say, okay, what is it that you need from me to be able to answer that question? What vocabulary can I help you with? So I try to be that cheerleader while I'm also, you have to be a very good multitasker, while I'm also monitoring the students in that time.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so with Let's Get Ready to Rumble, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this one because this is one of my absolute favorite activities. Again, it is one that is going to be kind of loud. What we have, and I do this for all levels. So again, it's another partner activity. The students receive 6 cards. You'll see here's English versions of the cards. The 6 cards have sentence stems on them. 2 sentence stems are expressing their opinion. 2 are saying that they agree or kind of, yes, I can support that. And then 2 are disagreement. And basically I give them a topic, whatever theme that we're currently working on. And the point is for them to have a conversation, kind of a mini debate and with their partner. And then they, and get rid of their cards first. I usually give them about 2 minutes to do this with their partner before I then have them switch to another partner. And we'll do a debrief in between each time. And I'll ask, okay, who won? Why did you win? What were your arguments? And so forth. So what they also, so they always say, now normally if I were to do this face-to-face, this presentation, I would have you as participants actually do this activity so you could figure out what the strategies are to winning, because there are a couple of strategies. But I'm going to let you know what they are since we can't physically do this. So first thing is, because the students always complain, they say, wait, if they throw down the card first, they're going to win automatically because they're going to get rid of their cards first. So one thing is I tell them, make sure that if they throw down the card, but then they can't finish the sentence, give them about 10, 15 seconds. If they can't finish the sentence, then you can go ahead and throw down your card and pick up, they would have to pick up their card, the person who couldn't finish their sentence. And then the other strategy, I had one student who was really good at this. She would let the first person go ahead and go, and then she would string like 3 of these together and say, oh, I support that idea because blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, blah, blah, blah. It seems to me that blah, 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 and never let the other person get a word in. And so she would just string those cards together and be able to do it. That is a fantastic strategy for the students. So I'm going to show you how it works real quick. Just a short piece of this. These were my AP students working with, again, some sentence stems, and they were talking about, I've got to translate it, Tierversuch, animal testing is what we were debating. So.
Das finde ich überhaupt nicht. Ich meine, dass andere Alternativen ist nicht as gut als die Besucher.
Das finde ich überhaupt nicht. Meine Tiere haben Schmerzen und die Alternativen Tierversuche Zellkulturen oder Kultursimulation. Niemand muss Schmerzen.
You can hear that they're just having a cordial conversation with this. Now, if done right, if you work with your vertical team, then you can have your level 1 cards, okay? Have 6 different sentence stems. Again, we've got 2 of opinion, 2 with agreement, but, and then we have our disagreement. And so in level 1, I have just, I think, I find, or I like. Then in level 2, it changes to, well, it seems to me. In level 3, I have another way to say, in my opinion. In German, we have a couple of different ways to say, in my opinion. And then in level 4, we have it, I'm convinced that. I also have in level 4, instead of like, I support the idea, I might have a subjunctive. Wouldn't it be better if? So now they really have to push it. I actually switched them in middle of level 3 to those cards. So what this does is it allows those students, if you work with your vertical team, you have various, these various cards. By the end of level 4, they have 8 different ways to express their opinion and what they think. They have 8 different ways to disagree, and they have 8 different ways to agree. So now they've got so many different ways to be able to express themselves with their opinion. And it really, it translates into their writing as well. I had one group that, let's see, in the, I had one group of level 3s who let's see, one group was very quiet or very deep thinkers, I should say. And that was my 5th block. And my 4th block, they were the kind of fun, just the kids that just wanted to enjoy class. So very, very different type of group of kids. And in my deep thinker group, they would sit there and they would have these long drawn out conversations. They weren't playing the game of throwing down the cards and really expressing their opinion. They would have these long conversations like, whoa, wait, what's wrong here? You're not using the cards, you're not getting rid of the cards. And like, but don't you want us to give these detailed answers? And I'm like, I want you to have a quick conversation. And then my not so deep thinkers, but actually they were pretty deep thinkers, but they really just wanted to have fun. They would get into the game. They would stand up, they would throw their cards down, and really just get into it using these sentence stems, and also trying to get rid of them. So when I would read their papers, the feedback for my deep thinkers that just wanted to have the straight conversation was, you're using very low level language. You're using level 1 ways to express your opinion. Compared to my fourth block, my fun group that wanted to say that they were actually using all of them. And so their feedback tended to be more like, wow, great use of a variety of phrases to express your opinion. So it really does translate, and if they're using them correctly, it definitely moves into that presentational speaking. So like I said, this is one of my favorite activities I've given you. If you, in the drive, you'll get, if you're a German teacher, you're gonna get all of my cards, okay? If you are a Spanish teacher, I've got a couple of Spanish ones in there. And thanks to our French teacher, we have a French version in there as well. Unfortunately, those are the only 3 languages that I have in there, and then of course an English template. They are all on Microsoft Word business card template, and that is so they can all be the same size when you cut them out. And then I steal my husband's business card box when he gets new ones, and that's where I store them. So just a nice little hack there. Oh, and lastly is this topic here, the best city to visit. This doesn't have just 2 sides to it, which means when I'm walking around and monitoring the students, I have a set of cards in my hands too. And I can jump into a conversation and I start throwing down the cards and using the sentence stems and actually being a part of their conversation. So again, another one of my absolute favorite activities to work with these students. So moving a little bit, we've got a little bit more of line speak, interpersonal, as well as a little bit of presentational. This one is similar to inner circle, outer circle. Give the students a topic. I give them scratch paper to draw a picture on about that topic. I give them about 1 minute, 2 minutes, no words. And then they make 2 lines. So after that time to draw the picture, to describe their story or their information, then they make 2 lines and face each other. Line A has 1 minute to tell their partner all about their topic. They show them a picture and they tell them their story. And then line B, they have 1 minute to do the same thing. Then I ask them I'll say line B moves, and they move 1 person down. Person at the end comes to the very front of the line, and now we have a new partner. And they do this at multiple times. At level 1, they'll do this multiple times. It really is a presentational speaking at this point, and the students are just sharing that information. But I remind them, listen to your partner, because you might have forgotten a word and now you can pick up some words from them. Listen to what they have to say, because they're talking about the same thing. They just may say it a little bit differently, and you can pick up things from them. I also will start shortening the time. So you're saying the same information. Can you say it a little bit faster so that it flows a little bit better now that you've had a little bit of practice with it? But then we can move it up as far as the variations and leveling it up. So line B, as you're listening to them, you have 30 seconds or 1 minute to now ask some follow-up questions, and you'll have a little bit of a conversation about what line A had to say. Or even the next level of variation for, especially for my 3s and 4s students, I would say, okay, now you've moved, you have a new partner. Now, tell your new partner about what your previous partner had said. So now they're really having to have listened to the first person and they're telling a new story, and then they'll start over and then move again. So they have a couple of times with that new partner. Okay. Snowball Fight. This is another one that is pretty fun with my students. Haven't figured out a way to do this digitally. But with Snowball Fight, again, scratch paper. I have lots of scratch paper around my room. I give the students just a quarter piece of paper, and they have to write a question. It can do with our theme, whatever it is that we're talking about. I have them just write a question, any question. So let's say the theme is last weekend. Okay, you can ask, what did you eat last weekend? Where did you go last weekend? Who did you spend time with last weekend? What did you do on Saturday? Anything, okay? Ask a question about last weekend. And then they crumple it up, and then we have a snowball fight. So I'm gonna show you the snowball fight real quick.
Schneeballschlacht.
They just throw a piece of paper, pick up whatever's on the floor.
Und stopp. Nimm
I usually
eine.
give them 10 to 15 seconds to throw paper. They throw it around, pick it up, throw it around, pick it up. That's all that they're doing. But once they've done that, then I have them open it up, and I ask the students randomly to answer the questions. But first, they have to tell us the question. So now, maybe, especially with my lower levels, we're working on formulating questions. They don't know how to formulate questions. That is such a hard skill to learn at those low levels. So we say, okay, that question doesn't make sense. Let's make it make sense. So we work together as a group to actually go ahead and create, to formulate the question. And then I ask the student who happens to have it, go ahead and write it on there on that piece of paper, and now answer it. Give them 15, 20 seconds, answer the question as best you can. And we do that a couple of times before we go back to Schneeballschlacht, where they have their snowball fight. What I do like about this is that writing the questions becomes anonymous. Yes, answering it is not anonymous, but writing that question, which is really the hard part, becomes anonymous. And so I tell them, if you say, oh, but that's not what I meant, that's okay. We don't need to know who wrote it. What we're doing is we're working on formulating that question and then being able to respond to it. You can also do it as a turn and talk with those if you don't want, if the students don't want to report out in front of everybody. So a fun one, with my upper levels, I use it as a brain break. I may have them do it with the upper level themes, but at the same time, I may say, okay, we're going to play snowball fight for 3 minutes, and it can be any question. So it can be lower level questions as well, but we're doing it as a quick brain break for my students because, again, we're on the 1.5-hour block schedule. Okay, another partner activity, but still presentational speaking. This one really works for, and I like doing this at the lower levels as well, because it is preparing them for AP and IB. It is a picture description. We can add a lot of culture with this, with picture descriptions. And they sit together and look at a PowerPoint. Again, I have everything done in PowerPoint so that they have 20 seconds in between slides. Find a partner. The background of the presentational of the slide is your color, and that's when you speak. You have 20 seconds to describe your picture as best you can. So the picture description, that is IB related, but then the 20 seconds is a timing kind of pressure piece for that simulated conversation for the AP. And again, I start this super early, level 1, we start it. So you can see with my presentations, what I might have is I might have the picture, but with my lower levels, they don't really have all the vocabulary to describe it. But I might give them some guiding questions as to what to talk about with that particular picture. So you can see this was one that we did with the weather and seasons. So I asked them, for those who don't speak German, is it cold in the spring? In Texas, it's usually not very cold. Which months are there in spring? What do you like to do in spring? So you might have some guiding questions for them. But then for my upper levels, I have the picture, but then I might have the theme, which is Ivy related, or I might have a quote or a statement to kind of guide them in that direction. Or I might not have anything, just to get them to do a description. Again, and this links to an example. I believe the example is from our Spanish teacher, which is on La Tomatina. So it's a good, again, cultural piece that you can have. Sentence run. So we're just moving through all of these, and check my time. Okay. Sentence run. This is, it's an oldie, but a goodie. Students, you know, before, if you have your desks in rows, you would take a piece of paper, pass it behind them, write one word, pass it, write one word, pass it, and so forth. So I just have the students do these in small groups. They can write it on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, and I give them the infinitive phrase, or I give them one word. However, I'm formulating the activity. And then the students have to create a sentence, and they are doing it one word at a time. As a group, each student is responsible for writing one word, and then the last person, they have to write the last word of the sentence, and then they run up to the board and they write the full sentence. I'm looking at speed, can they come up with this information? And I'm looking at accuracy for their writing. But then I might, to level it up, to give some variations, I might have asked them to put in a certain number of words. So you have to have 5 extra words beyond that infinitive phrase. I might have, can you have a conjunction in there? So you need to have maybe a subordinating conjunction to make sure, for German, pushing the verb to the end of the clause. I might ask them to have a bunch of prepositional phrases that answer the 5 W's and the H as far as those question words go. I've also done it with stories to have them, maybe I'll put the infinitive phrase, or maybe I'll put the actual phrase in one tense, and then they have to put it in the past tense. This past year with my level 3s, one of the activities we were working on biographies. And so I had the sentences already formulated for them, but they had to then put it in the simple past, or the written past, the narrative past, whichever one you want to call it. And the students had to rewrite the sentences, and then at the end it was a biography, and then I had them actually organize the sentences, the statements, into a biography of that person that we were talking about at the time. So another variation, that ways that you can use it. I like, because this one is a good, especially with my low levels, if you have the space, have them sit in a circle. Student, and you have one less chair, of course. Student in the middle says, I like, they can add the because depending on what level they're at. And let's say, I like dogs. Everybody who likes dogs has to get up and run to another chair, okay? The person who is left without a chair, they're in the middle, and they have to do a new statement. I like, and then they do a new statement, same process. For leveling up, some variations, use a variety of those sentence stems, especially in those upper levels. You might say, express an opinion about the theme that we're working on. So in my opinion, whatever, anybody who also has an opinion would have to get up, run, and find a new seat. So can get a little crazy. Just make sure that that you have the space. It's one that I've also, if you have chairs and tables rather than the desks that are attached, I've had the students pick up their chairs and go outside and do this. Might be a little bit safer rather than the confines of the classroom. So that's, I think I timed everything. Some of the resources, but also, you know, some of these ideas I've had, and then I looked in the Actual Keys book and I found that I was like, oh wow, I already do that activity. So these are some of the things, places where I get some of my ideas. Teaching with Jennifer Finley, these are in Teaching with Love and Laughter. these are a couple of elementary school blogs that I like to follow, because elementary school, they are on target when it comes to movement. And then I also want to recognize, because my amazing colleagues, if you were with Katrina Griffin's webinar a couple of weeks ago, the best teacher, it might be just next door. These are some of the people who have inspired me, who have helped me. The Spanish versions are from Milibet Llanos Carmillion, and the French versions come from Anne Macharia, or even Isabel Kate. And like I said, Ben Fisher was my student teacher a couple of years, and he brought some of the ideas that I used to use, but then forgot about. And then Judith Kemp, also another Spanish teacher that I have worked closely with, that again, helps me along. So let's go to questions, and there is the bit.ly that gets you to the Google Drive. Again, thank you to IFLTA, Indiana Language Roadmap, and University of Indiana for having me here and for this fantastic webinar series. So, Chame, any questions that we want to answer before? Let's see, looking at time.
Yeah,
I think I did the time right. I was really working on that.
No, we are okay with the time. So
Okay,
I have seen several questions. Chame, please.
Yes. You're on mute.
Chame.
Yeah, I'm here. I have more than 10 questions.
Okay.
Okay, let's start from our beginning here.
And I'll go back wherever I need to go back to.
Okay. So that's one teacher's wondering, what does the second person check after the first person did the match in running matching game? Or after checking, what happens next?
They are just checking what person one did. So let's say if the students are sitting together and talking about the text, but one of them has already gone up, they're not getting that information. So they may be doing that piece individually. So they're doing and again, maybe they're a lower level student and don't understand it nearly as well as another student. So they're gonna go up, they do their piece, and then person two goes up and checks their work. And if they need to change it, they can change it. And then, and they bring that information back to their group. So they're just checking each other's work throughout before they bring it to me as the final piece. Hey, we're done.
Thank you. And what's your rubric for interpersonal task?
We have a district rubric, which I've been on the committee working on those. And a lot of it, we do have a district rubric that has it's a lot about the comprehension, but also the communication piece. How are they able to navigate through the conversation? Are they able to maybe restate something? So there's a lot of different pieces to it, but we do have a district rubric for interpersonal speaking.
Wow, that's cool. What's the pink paper there for?
The pink paper is it that?
For the cars, I think. For the cars activity.
Okay, so that's the actual text. So they get a copy together as the group. They get a copy of the text, and as a group, they're actually reading it. Whereas, but it doesn't have the headings. So they don't have the titles that go with each paragraph.
Thank you. And the teacher just wondering, do the 6 cards are in the same for each person?
Yes. So they're practicing using those sentence stems specifically. And they do have to really listen to decide how they're going to respond, whether it is a disagreement, whether they're starting a new statement to give their opinion, or whether they're agreeing, but they have more information to add. That is kind of the devil's advocate of that.
So you will provide some vocabulary bank for the activity?
Yeah, we usually do this towards the end of each theme, especially if there happens to be 2 sides where they already have that kind of, we've worked with this theme so much that now, hey, let's practice actually conversing with it to a certain degree, where we can have a mini debate about it. So yes, the vocabulary has been provided throughout the entire unit.
Oh, thank you. And what if the partner doesn't agree any card?
They've got to find a way.
Okay.
Because I do also tell them, especially if it is something that is two sides. So my level 3s, we have a unit called Education and Occupation, and we look at the German school system, and they actually debate which school system, the American system or the German system, is better for certain occupations. And some of them are, you may have two students that are both pro-German or pro-United States. And so when they get to that point, you have to pick a side, and whoever throws that card down first, they get the side that they pick. So you have to be fast when I call time. And then that means the other person has to disagree, regardless if they actually disagree. So now they do have to learn both sides. They have to be able to argue both sides.
Wow, that's good. That's critical thinking.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It really is.
So on the cards can be statements and questions.
I usually don't have questions, but yes, you could do questions. I usually just do that sentence stem to get their statement started. Again, to be able to express that opinion, as well as to be able to express agreement or disagreement.
Wow, thank you. And does the pair have to be on the different sides of opinions? I think so.
Yes, or, you know, like with my level 2s, we have a travel unit, and I ask them, okay, what is the best city to visit? So there's multiple possibilities. They, you know, one student may say Berlin, another student may say Vienna, another student may just say Paris. And then again, that's one that I like to jump in and actually put in my 2 cents and be a part of their conversation as well. So, which adds a little bit to, it makes them a little nervous, but that's okay.
Like push
work
them
through it.
Okay, great. So are those linguistic frames or sentence starters displayed anywhere in class or included in a list in the instructions for the activity?
In my classroom overall, they just have those sentence stems on the cards. I do have some posters that have several of these sentence stems on there. As far as the presentation, I'm not sure which they were asking. They will get, if you go to that bit.ly, you'll have access to my templates, and the English is there. There's an English template. There are my 5, maybe 6 versions of German. And then also there's 2 Spanish versions and 1 French version. Again, thank you to Millibet, Janos Gormillion, and Anne Macharia for those.
Oh, that's cool. And there's another Jennifer, Jennifer Shah, and she just stated, this is a fantastic activity to prep for the AP test. Yes. But even more something that students should enjoy and that will prepare them for real life conversations. So that's her opinion. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, and that's really what it's geared for, is for them to truly have interpersonal conversations. So
that's great. And is it each, okay, does it, let me see. Does each student get 6 cards or one pair gets 6 cards?
Each student gets 6 cards. So they actually have 12 cards total between, and they have the same phrases on them.
Okay, thank you. So one teacher said, oh, I'm super excited to implement, let's get ready to rumble in my class last year. She's very excited. Try to think about how to make this happen in a fully online class. Oh, that's challenging.
That is what I'm trying to figure out. Right now I'm thinking the best way to do it is, yes, have the students already have access to these cards, or to have access as far as the what the stems are, and then you would have to do breakout rooms. which I know Google Meets is working on doing breakout rooms as well. I think I saw that recently online, that it's something we've been requesting, because my district, it is all Google Meets. We are all Google, and it's all asynchronous. So I wouldn't be able to do it with the asynchronous learning.
Yeah, that's what my teacher said. Oh, it's hard to do online. Yeah, we can maybe try the break room. And another teacher said, I love this too, and I'm already thinking of a twist. That's positive remark.
Please, absolutely. Everybody, that's the thing, is that's why I like going to the elementary school blogs, because there's so much that I can take what's being done for an English teacher, I can take and then I can adapt it for foreign language. There's no reason why we can't use things from English teachers, from elementary school teachers. And again, elementary school, they are the masters of movement when it comes to our students.
Right. And another teacher just asking, oh, can Get Ready to Rumble be used for novice students? For the novice students, absolutely.
Yeah, novice students.
Absolutely, okay.
Yes, that's where I'm going to go back a few slides, go back to it. So you'll notice that I have my level 1. I actually have 6 sets or set of cards for my level 1 students, 6 cards for my level 2, level 3, and level 4. So they're all different. That way, by the time they get to level 4, by the time they're working AP or IB, or again, just normal conversation, they have 8 different ways to express an opinion. They have the lowest level one, I think, then they have ways of in my opinion, and then I'm convinced that. So they have a variety by the end. So yes, and I would just work with your vertical team. What do you think in Spanish 1 or in Chinese 1? What are those sentence stems that you think they could use to express an opinion? What's the most basic? And then let's move them up. What is the next level for level 2? And they work with that. If you do this with every unit and they work with that same sentence stem for a year, by the end of the year, it becomes natural. It's not just a sentence stem that they're trying to figure out. They've done it so much for an entire year that it's a natural phrase to them. And then you introduce in level 2 a new round of cards, but the other ones are so natural that they still use them, but now we're introducing more. And then those become natural. And then you introduce another group of cards and those become natural. So again, by the end, they have 8 different ways to be able to express themselves, to express their opinion. And again, you use it constantly, every single theme. If you can fit it in, then fit it in, and it becomes a natural part of their speech.
So it's like a natural acquisition.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Another teacher, okay, that's from Yifang Daisy Fairford. So she's wondering how, are students writing the questions in the Snowball Fight in English or in the target language?
In the target language.
Okay, so that's in German.
Yes, it is in the target language. And that's where, especially with the lower levels, I'm going to ask them, okay, you had, this question was not formulated right. So when one student is reading the question, but it's anonymous, so nobody knows who wrote it, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, it was written incorrectly, let's correct it as a group. Let's figure out what was the right question word, or what was the right order of the sentence of the question, that for our verb and our subject. What would be the proper way to ask it? Now write it on there. So everybody kind of gets that whole group, but then only one person is actually answering it. And again, nobody gets their feelings hurt because they didn't write the question well, and because they're a lower level student. That's okay.
Thank you. We have 3 more questions. Do you have enough time?
Or yeah, I'm fine with time, but that's maybe, up to everybody else.
Maybe
because we're 3 minutes over, or 4 minutes over.
Or let's combine the questions.
But I'm,
Okay.
I'm happy to answer questions. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 questions, 3 ones.
Okay.
When students write a question, do you ask them to put it in English as well? Like
No.
subtitle? No? Okay.
No.
Target language only, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. So with Snowball Fight, do you throw the snowballs again after every few questions?
Yes, we do it. And so I'll set maybe a timer and say, okay, we're going to play this for 10 minutes or for 5 minutes. And they'll do 15 seconds of throwing the snowballs. And then we'll answer 3 or 4 questions and then snowball fight again, 15 seconds. And then 3 or 4 questions and then snowball fight. So yes, we do it multiple times. And again, I'll set the timer and say, we're doing this for a specific amount of time.
So repeat, repeat, repeat.
Correct. And that way each student will get a different question each time.
Take turns to review the
Exactly.
Okay, great. Next question. If students write the question formula, the sentence in the wrong way, what do you do?
That's where we work together as a group to formulate the question correctly. We're basically anonymously helping that student form that question so that they can learn how to formulate questions, but also there may be another student who's struggling with that formulating questions. And so we work together. I'll write those things on the board. Well, what did we do wrong? What were the things that we can correct? The students who are able to help correct it, they can chime in. And then as well as myself chiming in to work together as a group to make those questions correct.
So that's what we do.
Correct.
Nice. So the from the last one, that's not question, just the feedback from Xiao Hui Na. She said, I know this game, the Snowball Fight, very popular for students. Everyone has fun for this game.
Yes,
Okay.
they do. They love it.
Thank you, Jennifer, for this excellent and magnificent webinar.
Thank
Has
you.
been so useful and fruitful, and really appreciate